That intro doesn't cover us up all the way. Sorry, technical difficulties. I just realized.
I guess it just wasn't made. It was made differently, I guess. Interesting.
I don't know. In a different ratio. Anywho, welcome to the Laughing Place Movie Club. Tonight we are talking about Mrs. Doubtfire, which joined Disney Plus on last Friday, August 6th. So hopefully you've seen it if you're joining us for this. If you haven't seen Mrs. Doubtfire, this is no way to be introduced to it. So don't watch this first. Watch it on Disney Plus, and then you can come back and watch this recorded version. If you're with us right now live, you should see a comment section on the side of the screen. If you're on YouTube, Facebook, and I think on Twitter, you just have to leave a comment. But feel free to join us in our discussion of the 1993 20th Century Studios classic, in my opinion, Mrs. Doubtfire. What's the time frame with which things have to become a classic? I know with Disney animation, it's instantly, but for all other things, how long does it take for something to become classic?
I feel like 20 years should be like.
So we're there. We're past it, right?
Oh yeah, and I think this was sort of like fell into instant classic.
Yeah.
I think like for kids movies, it happens quicker, just because, they. I don't know, like, and I didn't see it in its original theatrical run. I don't know why, but
I do, and I want to ask you about that. But continue with what you were saying.
You know why I didn't see it?
Yeah,
you have a better memory than I do.
Go on.
But it was part of like the cultural conversation. Like, all people were, there were parts in the trailer and the commercials that were everywhere. The cake, hello, like.
Hello.
That was.
Would you like one jump or two, darling? Two it is.
And I mean, this was like, I don't know. I feel like this was like the apex of Robin Williams' career, like at least his film career. It was
certainly a really good couple of years for him, because within the same time frame, he had Mrs. Doubtfire, he did Genie and Aladdin. Hook was right around this time, which I know you and I feel very differently about Hook, but I love that film. And so, yeah, and I think the 90s were kind of Robin Williams' decade. I mean, it wasn't really until the end of the 90s that anything quality-wise with his filmography, at least, started to go downhill. His comedy was still in his A game, so definitely amazing.
Yeah, and what's interesting is my first exposure to Robin Williams was through Nick at Night with Mork and Mindy, but and then he did the 1982, or was it 1980 Popeye?
Know what I am, I mean, he's me. Know that I am, he's me, he's me.
And then 92 he did Timekeeper. So like he was just kind of everywhere. He was like the Dom DeLuise of 1992. And I think, well, he did have his like ups and downs. But I feel like out of all his like non-animated work, I mean, Aladdin is a different sort of animal, but I feel like this is perhaps the most culturally significant. I mean, you could make a case for Birdcage, but I feel like Birdcage has kind of not had the same lasting impact as Mrs. Doubtfire. So
I think Birdcage, for a number of reasons. I mean, Birdcage is based on La Cage aux Folles. Then you also have the fact that really, I think Birdcage was very groundbreaking at its time for being a mainstream film about gay characters. But nowadays, I don't think it's as rare. I still think Birdcage is very special, and it's one of my favorite things Hank Azaria has ever done. So I really love Birdcage, and if you haven't seen it, definitely go check that one out. Not Disney, not coming to Disney Plus, but every once in a while it pops up.
Who made Birdcage?
MGM. And it's like the MGM, not the Warner Brothers Ted Turner version of MGM, because there's a difference. But anyway, Benji, I want you to share your story of when did Mrs. Doubtfire enter your life, and how did that happen?
I was at the dentist, and I was on like nitrous oxide, I guess, as a kid.
Here in your hometown of?
What's that?
Here in your hometown of?
Danville,
California.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. And so I see where you're going with this.
Oh, is this not the story you're telling?
No, well, I'll tell the story. So
Okay.
I didn't see it at first because, I sort of had this chip on my shoulder about it for a different reason, which I'll tell. But, it wasn't Disney, and like I just didn't go see it. It was kind of like everyone saw it except me. But then I was at the dentist office and I was on nitrous oxide, and they had like TVs like mounted to the ceiling while you were like having whatever done. And I just remember thinking this is a terrible movie to have on while on laughing glass while trying to have someone do work in your mouth, because like it's funny and it's really funny if you're on nitrous oxide. And I tried not to laugh and it was hard. But I actually grew up.
I had not heard that story.
Yeah, that's like, and like, I mean, I only saw like, whatever, 30 minutes of it, like in the middle. But I actually grew up in Danville, where the Bridges restaurant, it's actually a real restaurant. They use the real name for whatever. It was like the first time they used a real name.
Bridges is a real restaurant. It's here in Danville, California. It's not all that convenient to get to from San Francisco. And probably the most unbelievable thing about Mrs. Doubtfire is not that he convinces his own family that he's somebody else for months or however long the time span is in this, but the fact that not only does Miranda love Bridges so much that's where she wants to go for her birthday, but that also Robin Williams' new boss, the only place he wants to go is Bridges, and it's out of the city. It takes about 35 minutes to get here, depending on where you're starting.
No one has ever gone from San Francisco to go eat at Bridges unless they had like meeting people in Danville or they had an affinity for Mrs. Doubtfire. But so like the whole street was closed. Like there's a main street that Bridges is kind of off. And so when they were filming,
like, get a picture in your head. Imagine Stars Hollow from Gilmore Girls, and as like one street, and that's like downtown Danville.
And I just remember, like, I don't remember. It was probably like a week, but I remember it being like 12 months. That they closed down this street for this filming. And when you see the movie, it's not so much that they had to close the street probably for like they shot anything outside, because there's no real exterior shots. But it was probably but I think it was primarily closed because they had to have the trailers and all that stuff.
Craft services, despite the fact that they're in a restaurant.
Right. So yeah, it's weird now looking back, and you'll be like who did Bridges buy off? Like, it's just because they mentioned that, like, it's not like, oh, we're gonna go eat at no, it's like the real name of the restaurant in Danville, and they actually filmed there. Very weird. I'm sure there's a story. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so like, and people were cranky about it around here. Like, they were like, I mean, and Robin Williams lived in this area at the time. In fact, my mom saw him.
He grew up on the other side of the Golden Gate, didn't he?
Yeah, and so my mom actually saw him at the hospital when she was in for some minor procedure, and I guess his wife was pregnant, and like they were in the waiting room together.
Did he have a clown nose on?
He did not have a clown. He was not playing the part of a doctor. So he, like, a Robin Williams sighting was not rare in this area, but it was filmed right. We could literally take this computer and walk to Bridges right now, but
it would be like a 1 hour live stream because we're not. So you had told me that story, and the version that you had relayed to me, 7 years ago ish, was that was the reason you hadn't seen Mrs. Doubtfire, was there was just all of Danville was just so bitter about the fact that Main Street had to be closed for a couple days. People couldn't get to their favorite restaurant, Bridges. And
yeah, so, I would say kind of like, especially my mom, who's not the most flexible person. But it's not like I like had a principle against the movie, but just it was one of those movies where it's like, am I gonna go see it? No, I'm okay. And then it became so popular that then you didn't want to see it just because, it was like too big to be cool. But and I kind of resented the fact that like he was having a big role that wasn't like, I felt like I was like an OG Robin Williams person because I watched Mork and Mindy, and then like this was his like low grade family humor, even though obviously Mork and Mindy is like about as low grade as you get. But so I didn't even see the movie like all the way through without being under the influence until I met you.
Yeah, and it was when we moved here, and I heard that you hadn't seen it, and we now live, a stone's throw away from San Francisco. And to me, there's just like a handful of movies. When I think of San Francisco, I think of these movies, and probably number one on the list is Mrs. Doubtfire. Number two is Sister Act, and number three is Princess Diaries. And then Love Bug. I mean, Love Bug takes place in San Francisco too, but I don't think any of Love Bug was filmed in San Francisco. I think it was entirely filmed in Burbank. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just quintessential San Francisco, and so I felt like you needed to see it. And then when you told me the Bridges story, it just blew my mind. And then this is a sad story, but on the day Robin Williams died, one of my good friends from growing up in Wisconsin lives in San Francisco, and Mrs. Doubtfire is a very emotionally important film to them. It came out around the time, or maybe not around the time, but when their parents divorced, it became very meaningful. And so for that reason, Robin Williams has always had a big part of their life. Plus, they loved Aladdin. So Sean called and said, have you heard the news? By the way, I called Bridges and we booked the table for dinner. And so that was my first time eating at Bridges. Now, they had renovated. The restaurant didn't look exactly like it did. The tables had been swapped out. So no, it wasn't the table that the family sat at in Bridges, but it was in that same spot. Table, 42? They go out of their way to say it in the film. But anyway, I mean, it's all there. They have right by the restrooms, and they still have this there, a autographed poster of Mrs. Doubtfire signed by Robin Williams. I've been to the men's room. I've used the stall. It's the one where Doubtfire's taken her carpet bag in to do her quick changes. So if Mrs. Doubtfire is a meaningful film to you, and you ever find yourself in the Bay Area, and you want to be in the places where they filmed it, you can go to Bridges, the real restaurant. I think they owe me a steak dinner now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a lot of questions about Bridges, because Bridges is also not like Spago or like a restaurant that's, I think, famous outside of Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah,
like it's not like it's fine. Like we have many restaurants here. We didn't grow up going to Bridges. I mean, you saw the pass by the sign. It's not hard to get into Bridges. I don't know. It just seems like an interesting.
It is hard to park at Bridges.
It's hard to park at Bridges, which in Danville is weird, and so maybe part of their problem, because it's not like you have public transport going to Bridges. It's not walking distance from any residential areas. So I don't know. I would love to know more. I mean, I don't know that I'll ever will, because I don't think it's that important for anyone to ever tell the story. But yeah, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then now Mrs. Doubtfire is all part of the if this movie was part of the Walt Disney Company when I was a kid, I would have had a totally different outlook on it.
I will say, I mean, you seem to have. I was able to pinpoint like this is a Disney animated movie versus a Disney a non-Disney animated movie. But when it came to live action, I wasn't that picky. I wanted to see everything that Disney did, but I wasn't like, oh, Casper's not Disney, so I won't go, or Flintstones isn't Disney, so I won't go.
I still love Flintstones. I mean, I'm not stupid, but but no, it's just, well, I guess, yeah, and there was this tendency back, like now I think they're better at release date kind of spacing, but there was a tendency back then to kind of bulk release. And I mean, it's not like, where we went to the movies every week. We went like during the summer.
Like this was the same summer as Jurassic Park, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And My Girl. Like I remember a lot of good movies coming out like right around this time.
And so I don't know, I just like we had to be a little choosier. We didn't go out to the movies all that often.
Oh, I grew up in a place where there was nothing to do, so we went to the movies all the time.
Yeah, we just didn't. I mean, we would go maybe once a month if like two movies came, like around Christmas we might go see two. It wasn't until I started really like being in junior high that I went like all the time. But yeah, it was just one of the things, we would rotate through activities, and it wasn't so much. I mean, for a Disney movie, we would make it a destination, but other times it's not like we would, hey, we want to go to the movies. So what do you want to see? Like, it just didn't happen that way. And so we were just pickier back then. And
I will say one of the things I vividly remember about this time when Mrs. Doubtfire came out was it was so popular that it played for so long, but almost immediately after it became a hit, stores were advertising the home video release date of Mrs. Doubtfire. Like you'd walk by Blockbuster and they'd be like, "Mrs. Doubtfire is coming, this date." Like there was just so much demand to see it again and again and again. And Kidder96 does bring up a good point. Actually, she mentions a movie that I have not seen that I want to, Aquamarine, because I love mermaids, and I don't know why I didn't see that. Maybe it was because it just seemed too juvenile at the time it came out, and I would have felt weird renting it. But now that's coming to Disney Plus, I'm going to see Aquamarine. I also have not seen Aragon, which I believe was motion capture. And then Underdog, you enjoy this one quite a bit, Benji, as a fan of talking animal movies and dogs.
I do, although I don't think Aragon was motion capture,
wasn't it?
No, it was with the dragon.
Yeah,
it's like I mean, the dragon is CGI, but the
okay.
You might be thinking of Beowulf.
I am thinking of Beowulf. Thank you.
But yeah. Yeah, well, no, it's weird to see these. I don't know. I think we're getting a lot of like 90s, 2000s stuff on Disney Plus. I think we all want some more classic things that have yet to appear.
Summer Magic.
What's that?
What were you gonna say?
I didn't hear you.
Oh, I said Summer Magic.
Oh, Summer Magic, Barefoot Executive.
He's gonna make it.
So I mean, I'm not gonna go through the whole list, but yeah.
Kurt Russell.
So yeah, but at least we got Mrs. Doubtfire, and I think we might have her for a while. I think this might be the last.
And Mrs. Doubtfire has come and gone already. Like this is, I think, Mrs. Doubtfire's second time coming to Disney Plus. There's a couple, like Home Alone comes and goes. The Sandlot comes and goes a lot. I think The Sandlot has had like 5 separate occasions where it's like new on Disney Plus. But like The Sandlot 2, 3, and 4 are always available.
Yeah, I think it's those sort of like family films that Fox had kind of licensed out to other services. They kind of come and go when the window is open, and then they go. At least in the United States, I know. Depends on
it is. Yeah, it's weird when you look at like what other countries have constantly available versus what comes and goes for us.
Do you have a favorite Robin Williams movie?
I mean, I would say Aladdin, the animated original Aladdin, is probably hard to top, but Mrs. Doubtfire is probably a close second, and then Hook would be my number 3, and probably bottom of my Robin Williams list is Old Dogs, a Disney movie that I hate. There's not many, but that's one like I will go out of my way to never see Old Dogs again. What about you, Fanboy?
I think I gotta go with Aladdin. I mean, I know it's stereotypical, but I mean that the genie character was so revolutionary, and I remember there being concerns about will it be timeless because like he was caricaturing folks and
I mean he becomes Jack Nicholson, but he also becomes Pinocchio.
Yeah, but I think the characters. I think with hindsight, the characters the references he made were either timeless or kind of fun on their own, even if you don't get what he's referencing.
Yeah, I feel like Walter Cronkite is going to be the first that becomes like. There'll come a point where like a whole generation will be like, "What is he doing there?"
Well, he's doing his co-star from Back to Neverland.
It'll be like for us watching Lady and the Tramp. What's the timely joke in that one? I forget. There's a joke in Lady and the Tramp that was like went over gangbusters in 1953, and it's a outdated cultural reference now.
Well, it's like Winnie the Pooh when he's not in the book. Winnie the Pooh.
Oh yeah,
right, and you're just like, oh, he's not in the Winnie the Pooh book. That's meta, and then you don't get that. He's not in the
phone book. Yeah, that's the real joke. It worked both ways. Now, because of Aladdin and Mrs. Doubtfire coming out so close to it, I kind of thought Robin Williams was just like a professional voice actor, but he really didn't do that much. He did Aladdin, he did the voice acting in this, he did what's it called, Journey to Neverland?
Back to Neverland.
Back to Neverland. Not I know it wasn't Return.
Yeah, which is really, it's like a voice act. I mean, it's kind of both, but yeah.
He did Aladdin and the King of Thieves, Against the Odds, and then he did Robots, which is Blue Sky, which should be coming to Disney Plus at some point. But I believe
Timekeeper.
Well, Timekeeper, do we count that as animated? That was a theme park.
No, but I would count it as a voiceover role.
Okay, but I mean, so he really didn't do that many animated characters, but I think because of the intro to Mrs. Doubtfire, I just had this like belief that Robin Williams did so many cartoons around that time.
Yeah, well, and because he was known for doing like cartoon voices, like not literally, but in his comedy, he would do, not quite a Dave Coulier type, but similar.
Yeah.
But I'll let you talk for a minute while I deal with this.
Deal with the dogs. Well, for everybody who's been commenting, I do want to thank Nathan, Lily, and Kidder96 for their engagement tonight. We always appreciate when there's comments and discussion on the side of the screen. But yeah, Mrs. Doubtfire has always been a very special film for me, so I'm happy to have it back on Disney Plus. It was nice to get to watch it again. This is one of those films that I probably see once every like 2 to 3 years, so it doesn't, and it never gets old. And I always find new things about it. Do you have a favorite funny moment from it, or a favorite moment from the film?
I can't think of anything.
I mean, there's so many good ones. There's some that I appreciated more as I got older, like the drive-by fruiting. I think I didn't really understand as a kid.
Probably my favorite part is when like he's going through the different like mock-ups and just like one, zingers like
Barbara Streisand. Like he does a lot of impersonations all of a sudden in there. Some original, some characterizations. Yeah, that one's really fun, and they're singing Matchmaker. I remember as a kid thinking this was hilarious, and it doesn't tickle me now, but the Aerosmith song "Dude Looks Like a Lady" plays over a montage of like him going to and from work as Mrs. Doubtfire. And as a kid, that just cracked me up. Also, the part, I think they're playing Walk Like a Man shortly before the Lawrence brother who's in this walks in on him and discovers that Mrs. Doubtfire is really his dad.
Yeah, I guess that's another disconnection. There's always a Lawrence brother.
There's always a Lawrence brother. Mara Wilson, I think her last film before she gave up acting was Balloon Farm, A Wonderful World of Disney TV movie. And then the older sister in this, I forget her name, but I don't know if she ever did any Disney work, but I think she was in the Warner Brothers 90s remake of Little Women, the one with Kirsten Dunst and Angelica Houston.
Do you know what excuse me. Do you know what Mara Wilson's most recent television role was?
No, doesn't she write now?
She was a voice actress on Big Hero 6, the series, playing Liv Amara.
Oh, wow.
The villain in season 2.
Yeah. I feel like most people know her from Matilda, but this is probably my favorite film of hers. And then she also did the remake of Miracle on 34th Street, which has not yet come to Disney Plus, but the original is on there, and both were 20th century, so I would expect it to come at some point.
So that's Mrs. Doubtfire. So here's the deal. We may have a big Disney event next Monday. So if we do, we may not do Movie Club next Monday. It is slated to be Free Guy. So if we don't get to it on Monday, we will get to Free Guy. We will do it. Just don't know exactly when. But Cole, Mac, and Mike are scheduled for that one. And then after that, we'll have Aragon, the aforementioned non-motion captured film.
And how can people see Free Guy, Benji?
In theaters.
Only
like God
in theaters.
intended.
Yeah, only in theaters. It's rated PG-13.
Yes.
Yes. PG-13, a little bit of language, a little bit of innuendo.
A lot of video game style violence, like
Video
nothing
game style
bad, but
violence.
just a lot of guns.
A lot of guns, but they're like video game guns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought that was funny. So you can check that out in theaters and possibly join us sometime next week, maybe Monday. Won't be me, but for the next installment of Laughing Place Movie Club. What's going on tomorrow, Benji?
So tomorrow we have a pretty light schedule. We'll have Barely Necessities tomorrow at 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then, ongoing coverage. If you haven't checked it out, we just posted a report from the embarkation of the Disney Cruise Line for its first return voyage. Ooh. So go ahead and check that out.
I'm going to go do that right now.
Thanks so much for joining us. And we'll see you. Just follow, like, subscribe, ring the bell. That's the best way to kind of let us know, find out when we're going to be live. You never know what breaking news is going to happen. So thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you later.